Check it out. What's up, everybody? Hope everybody is well. Thank you so much. This is the second time for today. Thank you, everyone who's returning. Thank you, everyone who is going to watch this in the future. Hit the like button on your way in. I'm going to start tagging people. I don't know what I'm going to start doing. Y'all need to like these videos, right? So I got a special guest in the building, daughter of Ms. More Less. Thank you so much for checking out the show. And welcome to the show. Thank you so much, Miss Vanessa Butler. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm grateful to be here.
Absolutely, absolutely. If you would take a moment, would you introduce yourself or tell us who you is and all that kind of good stuff?
Awesome. Well, I'll offer before anything else. I am a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a friend, I'm an auntie. I'm someone who cares very deeply about justice, about healing, and just humanity. And I really strive to live a life rooted in faith and guided by discernment as well as grounded in authenticity. So that's my foundation. Those are like some of my core pillars and how I choose to show up in the world. I'm a believer in Jesus. I'm a longtime advocate in the nonprofit space here in Columbus, Ohio. I graduated from Denison University in 2011 with my BA in political science. And I also have my JD from Capital University Law School.
Capital is down in the DMV area. Is that where that is?
No, Capital is here in Columbus.
Dang. All right, I got to get out more. Okay. Where's Denison at? Where's Denison at?
Yeah, so Denison is about, I would say, 30 minutes east of Columbus. So I didn't go far. It's a funny story attached to that, but yes, I chose to go there, and you'll hear in my story, my educational fabric is very much lined in predominantly white spaces, and I would say the majority of my professional career has been in PWI spaces as well.
Yeah, we were talking before. We'll definitely get into that.
Yeah.
So I want to welcome people more with less. Welcome. Thank you so much. You're absolutely right, Miles. Another overtime, right? So overtime, brothers get paid, right? So hit a brother up with a few dollars for overtime. I would appreciate it. Blue Sapphire, hello to you. She's saying hello to Ms. Butler.
Hey,
Deborah Hutchinson. Deborah Hutchinson's in the building. High Vibe is here as well. Let me say this to the moderators here. You guys did a good job. Someone I saw it. Somebody was getting a little feisty in the previous session. So whoever was monitoring that, I appreciate it. I didn't get a chance to comment on it, but I do appreciate it. So thank you. And please, as always, keep up the good work. Keep up the good work. You know, I want to have some more controversial guests. Not that Anita is controversial, but you know, I think a lot of coaches are taking heat when they are not married themselves or in long-term relationships. And a lot of that I can see, but we still want to have a conversation with them, and I believe in being respectful to people. So I believe in that, whether you agree or disagree. And Miss Butler, you caught a few minutes of the last session that we had. We were talking about Dr. Cheyenne Bryant. What were your thoughts about that?
Oh boy. Let me offer, in approaching everybody with grace, right? Like there are evolutions and people happening all the time. I think that people became very versed with her and her platform when she was on Cam Newton's show. I honestly, it was not even on my radar to watch that episode, and I heard about it. And so I said, well, let me check it out. I think at a high level, I think what people appreciated her for was calling Cam out and how he's moving in life and how he's navigating relationships and fatherhood, right? And so her whatever knowledge she thinks she has about trauma, and lived experiences. I'm not a licensed practitioner. I do believe in therapy. I do believe in counseling. So for those that are actually doing the work, thank you. And again, I don't know that much about her, but I think what we have to do as people is really be vigilant in like the information that we're consuming. And I say that because the clip that you demonstrated when she was on Paul's, and I don't know the co-host name, but
I don't know either.
I don't know if that matters, but like she was just really showcasing her true colors, and like she was really kind of telling on herself about how she's choosing to navigate romantic relationships, not from the posture of loving people and not from a posture of honoring another human being, but it's to maintain this control. And so how do we reconcile, as especially Black women, like, first of all, we need to be more discerning about who we're getting in relationships with anyway. And so if that is your choice to do that, but you can't be in one lane saying and preaching this, but you're actually living something completely different. And so this lack of consistency, she's going to have to reconcile that. I always think that these are ripe for conversation, but she is ultimately going to have to be the one to reconcile that. And I also think it's a true demonstration of perhaps she does not have community. She does not have people that are holding her accountable. And if she does, and she's just choosing not to listen to wisdom. And so we all have choice in this world. We all have free will, but I think she kind of bamboozled some people. So I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with her platform and with those that truly do subscribe to what she is teaching, particularly women, how to navigate relationships, because I can tell you that that's not a healthy way of navigating them.
Yeah, no, I can appreciate that. I appreciate it. Thank you. She is, yeah, she is self-destructing right before our eyes, and it's sad. I don't take
Mhm.
pleasure with that. And
Yeah.
somebody wrote in the chat, I didn't put it on the screen there, but I did see it, that I have a personal vendetta against her. I don't know that lady, and I never interacted with her.
Yeah.
And the only, I did do two videos about her because I heard that she didn't have a doctorate, and I explained this before to you, but the two videos I did, the first one was me kind of going through her bio on her website,
Mhm.
and um and then um and then somebody wrote to me. I was going to leave it alone because she went on the Breakfast Club.
Yeah.
After I released my video, she went on the Breakfast Club, and she said she said quite plainly, I have a doctorate in such and such. I'm
Mhm.
good with that. Okay, I left it alone. But after that, I got a message saying, "Did you reach out to her? Did you do this? Why would you make this video?" And as I said in the video that I made, and as I said to you, as I said in the last video that was just on, it's about accountability. It's
Mhm.
about making sure that people are who they say that they are,
That's right.
and that they're doing what they say that they're doing. People email me all the time. Listen, you're right. You're wrong about this. They're in my comment section, and listen,
Mhm.
that's holding me accountable, right? So I try
Yeah.
to make sure that I'm knowing what I'm talking about. If I'm wrong, if I haven't read a study, if I misquoted something, then I don't
Mhm.
mind being called out. I mean, it's a blow to my ego. Like, man, how did I get that
Mhm.
wrong? But I'm not going to get mad at somebody or whatever. And you're absolutely right about that, about holding people accountable.
Yeah.
And if she has a circle of friends, her circle needs to say to her, listen, that interview was bad,
Yeah.
and you are saying this. This might be difficult. She may need a senior person to do this, a pastor, or I don't know about her mom and dad situation, but
Right.
somebody that she highly looks up to and respects, to kind of pull her coattail and say, listen, that
Yeah.
interview was extremely bad.
Yeah.
You're not, in particular for Black women, you're a lot of women, Black women, are looking up to her
That's
because
right.
and I get this. I get this true. I really get this, that there's a lot of women who are going through situations, right? Cheyenne Bryant has purportedly, been the daughter of, a drug dealer, and mom was just a bad situation environment. She
Sure.
then comes out of that, gets her education, and is still maintaining a little bit of swag,
Mhm.
as she has a purports herself to be a doctor. And I
Mhm.
get that. There's an appeal to that. That if she made it, I can make it. I get
Yep.
that.
Yep.
But you got to live the life, and you can't dump on Cam Newton, dump on
That's right.
who else did she dump on? Nick Cannon,
Mhm.
violating all these ethical standards, and then because she's telling, she was
That she
just
was a
saying these
doctor.
interviews.
Yeah.
Well, she was saying in these interviews, I talked to such and such, and he's got this going on, and this so and so is my client. You can't be doing that,
Right.
right? You can't be doing that. So she's got to just kind of live the life and all that. So that's why I wanted to highlight and address that. So anyway, that's enough about her. If people, it really is. I don't have a personal. I don't want to see her go down. I'm not trying to hurt her or any other Black woman. I just want people to. I want us to be the best version of ourselves.
That's
And
right.
sometimes that means calling people to the carpet, myself
Yep.
included. It means calling
But
people to the carpet.
in calling people to the carpet, doing it in love. And so
Right.
it needs to be, let's do it in private first, right?
Mhm.
Like, there's a lot of people that are trigger happy with fingers and they want to say all the things, but the art of having a one-on-one conversation in person is lost because
Mhm.
they don't know how to approach other people. So it's like, yeah, hold her accountable, but do so with grace and in love. That's all.
I agree with that. And I did DM her, not trying to slide in her DMs, but I did send her a message and I did it on her website and on her Instagram. So if she ever reaches back and say, listen, we can talk, we can certainly have a conversation, whether it's on the air or not.
Mm-hmm.
Because I believe in that. I believe everything you just said. You gotta have, sometimes you gotta have a private conversation. Somebody's gotta quote unquote knock some sense into you. So if you don't see your name at the bottom of the screen here, you're watching this, right? These are the Sage members, right? So I want to thank them for their support every month. They get special content, et cetera, special lives, special contents, access to videos a little bit early. So if you don't see your name there, sign up to become a Sage member. And to any other member, thank you so much. Make sure if you're in the building, you say hello, like the video, please like the video, and all that. So let's get into what I wanted to have you on here for. Sometimes us folks, we are we're working in spaces that are sometimes hostile towards us, whether it's knowingly, unknowingly, intentionally, unintentionally, etc. And so we want to learn how to navigate the space. Now, speaking of memberships, I did a members only video that More with Less, yo mama, so watched. And she thought of you and thought you would be good to have on the show, and I do appreciate her for helping to set this up. So I want to show a clip of the video that I played during the members only because everybody else didn't see it. So this is a clip of the video, and this is a video about a Black woman who grew up not only she grew up somewhere I think in the Northeast, and had a traumatic experience being a Black woman in predominantly white spaces.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, she is now needing therapy. So we'll listen to the video here and we'll come back and talk about it.
Okay.
A beautiful Black woman who also is a content creator, and she opened up about her experience as a Black woman who grew up in an affluent, predominantly white area. What she has to say about her experience, and then we're going to break it down.
Someone needs to do an academic study on the outcomes and the experiences of young Black girls who go to predominantly white prep schools. I firmly believe if you are sending your young Black daughter to a really nice elite prep school, be prepared not only to pay back tuition now, but to also pay for very expensive therapy in a decade from now. I went to one of those like $50,000, $60,000 a year prep schools from 6th grade up until 12th grade. I played lacrosse, field hockey, crew on the Charles River. It was also a New England prep school. I think there's also a regional nuance here. It was psychological warfare. Spending your most formative years not being the standard of beauty, being ostracized, oftentimes being the only one in your class, having to learn about slavery in a very unsafe environment. It is, I don't think parents understand the psychological cost and warfare on young Black girls to go to these elite prep schools. Forget about having a boyfriend. Forget about going to prom. Forget about learning about race and consciousness in a healthy and safe way. Forget about if you're smart, if you're talented, if you're pretty, even if your parents have money. It is torture. You cannot fully know yourself and also be self-aware and develop a healthy sense of self in a space like that. I refuse. You can argue with me if you want. You can't do it. And I'm saying this for young Black girls specifically because I think young Black boys, though the trauma might also still exist, I think they have very different experiences than young Black girls who go to prep school.
I am not a person who is against aspiring for.
So what I did was I sent that clip that was from Shay Sharday, who's another YouTuber. Shout out to her. I want to give credit to where it's due. Well, that's who was narrating in the background. I haven't found the original clip of the young woman who was speaking. I'd like to have her on the show. So what I did was I sent that clip to a couple of other Black sociologists, Black psychologists, who I've kind of connected with and who've been on the show. One was Diane Stewart, and the other was Chris Marsh, and then there's another one, Janine Williams. Well, all of these are, Janine Williams is a psychologist who teaches at University of Washington. Chris Marsh, I think she teaches somewhere in Baltimore. I can't remember the school she teaches at in Baltimore. I think University of Maryland, I think.
Okay.
And Diane Stewart is at, I forget, Emory or something like that. Anyway, so Chris Marsh is going to get back to me about it. Diane Stewart did write me a nice email saying that she doesn't know specifically, but she has heard those types of stories where they don't get invited to prom, they don't get boyfriends, and things along those lines. And she sent me a couple of books to go over. So we'll save those for the end. But I want to get your opinion about that particular video that we just watched.
It hit deep, but not in a way of like, oh my gosh, I still feel that trauma. It was more of I'm curious as to how she has taken care of herself in that journey. And so, yes, I agree with everything that she has said up into a point of like, again, how are you going to choose, understanding that you have that lived experience, how are you then going to choose to reset your mindset? Like, how are you going to choose to navigate the rest of your life? How are you going to choose to pull perhaps the positives from those experiences and not allow so much of the negativity? I think there's richness to acknowledge those things for what they were, but certainly not to cloud the rest of my life. So I'm very much a person where, yes, I did not have a boyfriend while I was in school. I was always, I felt like I was scrutinized a lot by how I showed up, what I said in class. Even when it got to high school, in terms of choosing colleges, like I had to really create my own space and lane so that way I could at least create some sort of, not necessarily isolation in a bad way, but just understand that I'm going on a probably different path than a lot of my other peers. And, I think there's so much to be done in terms of the fabric and infrastructure of these institutions, so much to the point where I've gone back and I've served on the alumni board. I've gone back and I've talked to like the graduating seniors who are Black. And I'm like, you've had this experience, and there might be, you might be going to a Harvard or you might be going to a Yale, but who are you and what makes you unique when you walk out into the world? Because once you go into college, you step out of that bubble and like you are exposed to so many more lived experiences. These types of institutions, particularly private schools, they're so insular. They should be more like rich in terms of socioeconomics, and there should be more conversations and honoring those spaces, as well as honoring people's differences. Like, I was the only one in the majority of my classes every single day. When I got to my school in the 6th grade, I was literally the only Black girl in my class. There were two black boys, and there was me. In the 7th grade, someone else came along. By the time I got to my senior year, I was one of 5 out of 86 graduating seniors. So, I think it's one of those things where it would be nice that from like the very beginning, if a conversation is had as a family, okay, this is the investment that we're choosing to do for your educational experience, and this is how we're going to provide additional supports. I think the conversation around therapy is interesting because, like when I started my therapy journey later in life, I think I would have benefited from going to therapy simultaneously, but not just because I was going to this school, but also because there were other real life circumstances that I was going through and changes. And so how is the honoring of my worth and identity elevated for me, so that way I'm not constantly doing this comparison with people who don't look like me. Like it just doesn't make sense. We offer very different things. And so from a high level, that those are my takeaways from that. And I'm like, we can dig into it, but like, I think, what is your purpose in doing that video? Was it to spark a conversation? Was it cathartic for you to say those things? Like, I'm curious as to the root for why she chose to make the video in the first place. But I think it sparks a really relevant conversation.
So I think that the young girl who was talking, again, I'd like to have her on. I'm trying to reach out to her. I think she probably was trying to start a conversation because, these are some traumatic things that I got to deal with. Right. And the second one, the narrator who was speaking there, Shay Sharday, that's the other YouTuber who I took the video from. I think she was trying to shed light on this, like, because a lot of times Shay Sharday seems to cover items where people are swirlers. If you know what a swirler is?
I don't. So
okay. So a swirler is someone who is black female, and specifically dates white men, and has a antagonistic mindset towards black folks, black men in particular, right? Okay. So she is trying to uplift her life, upgrade her life by dating these type of men. So I think Shay Sharday was trying to highlight that getting amongst these types of people isn't all roses and the grass isn't greener on the other side, because there's trauma that comes with that.
Sure.
And some of this trauma is being called names, not feeling as if you're up to the beauty standard, maybe some jokes going on behind the scenes, all this stuff that we're probably going to dig into, that we've all experienced at some point or the other. So I think that those are two things. Okay. So, and then of course I made the video to say, listen, this is what's going on. We need to work together, because I think there's too many of us who are trying to attack each other, put each other down, black men against black women against black men. We don't like each other. We don't need each other. Y'all are broke, dusty, calling us bullet bags, black men no build, all this kind of stuff. And meanwhile, if you look at what's really going on, we really need each other. We really need each other. So I played a video the other day of an Indian guy who was going off on two brothers who at least present as black, they look black, and saying, why do you guys make these videos? Why do you guys make these videos and talk about your own women like this? Because they are the root, they are everything to you. They're the backbone of your community. Why would you make these videos? And this is an Indian guy who had done this. So maybe if I get a chance, I'll play it here tonight so you can see it. But I just think that's it's a conversation that we need to have with ourselves in order to really get over the problems and issues that we have. You know, the problems and issues that we have socioeconomically, our STD rates, our marriage rates, all stem back to our inability to like each other and work together.
For sure.
We have to confront that. Go ahead.
For sure. Yes. That calls for an entire family meeting that needs to have in general. Like I think that and if we're kind of narrowing in on the Black community, yes, like we really need to reconcile how we are encountering and interacting with one another each and every day, whether it just be friendships, whether it be romantic. All relationships need to be evaluated at some point, and it's rooted in whether we are allowing the majority to drive the narrative of our community, or are we going to take ownership over that? And I think that warrants a very different conversation. As it pertains to, clearly me starting at a private school in 6th grade, that was not my choice. But I think it was a choice that my parents chose because of, I just finished 5th grade. They're not too completely happy with the trajectory of the public school system I was in. So what can we do to then invest in something else? And by something else, I mean, maybe a different educational environment. Now, I don't think parents, particularly Black parents, fully understand what they're fully getting into because they're not taking into consideration the economic conversations or differences that may be happening for their child, and particularly if they're younger. But it's very much, I need my child to have a certain experience to then get them to the next. So it was very much, I'm not just thinking about these next 4 years. I'm thinking about the 4 years after that. Oh, and by the way, Vanessa's talking about she wants to go to law school. So what can we do to get her prepared as much as possible? What I will always honor and give flowers to my parents for is, one, thank you, because that was an investment that I had no idea, and I probably still really don't have an idea to the numbers, just the numbers alone. But I also think that there's room to have had a conversation. Hey, how can we be very intentional? We're sending her to this predominantly white institution. What are some activities outside of school that she can get involved with? What are the church activities that she can get involved with? How often is she spending time with family and friends? My experience was a blessing going in from a social component, because I did have friendships from elementary school that still carried through with me. So while I really didn't necessarily, I didn't feel seen or affirmed by the people I went to school with, there were the weekends, right? And I could do sleepovers and I could catch up with people that I felt seen and affirmed by. Would it have been nice to experience those things while I was in school all day, every day, and playing sports and singing in the choir? Yeah, absolutely. But as a mature 36-year-old woman, I have to, those were moments in my life that only built me to be stronger in the sense of today. And so I'm not going, what I don't do is just cry about those experiences, because again, they prepared me in ways that I really didn't see the fruits of it until recently. So I think academically, I felt pretty on par. Like I felt it was a struggle starting, but going through middle school and high school, once I got to college, I didn't feel like there was a huge transition. academically. So that really benefited me. I think the conversations around what are the, like, by society standards and by human standards, that they're the typical benchmarks, what were the experiences I feel like I missed out on? Let's just have that conversation. Did I have a boyfriend while I was in school? No. I did not have a boyfriend until I was a senior in high school. And even he did not go to the school. He was actually out of high school. He was a couple years older than me. And it was actually a really healthy first boyfriend experience. So I was like, that's a blessing to me, right? Did I express frustrations to other Black men that I went to school with? Absolutely. But that's normal. Like those are just normal conversations of, brother, why are you choosing someone else versus me? Versus, like, can we like also have a conversation of, well, even if he did choose me, what would that then mean? Like, no one, like, the concept of romantic relationships are so limited at that point. It's just kind of like, I can glean on those experiences, but I can't put too much weight on them because I was a child and my job was to go to school, and anything else in addition to that, awesome. But like, I can't, as a grown woman, I can't be like, oh, that completely clouded my whole lived experience. It really, what it comes down to is identity, and like what was curated for me in terms of, how do you see yourself as someone who is visibly different and who has different lived experiences than the people that you're in school with. And I think once you get to the root of really anchoring yourself in a sound identity, that will then help you to go in and out of different environments. So that's what I'll offer there. But yeah, I exhibited very strong feelings of wanting to then curate spaces for Black students like me. So like, we would do like lunches. We would meet like once a month. It was more of like an affinity group. So we would meet together on a couple of days out of the month, I think. And that was a sense of community. That was a safe space. And regardless if people felt like they needed it or not, they leaned into it. And, gratefully, I think another part of the conversation is, who are administrators that I can look up to? Like, who are the teachers who are like actually in the classroom? I did not have a Black teacher at my private school in the classroom until I was in the 7th grade. Our head of middle school at the time, what happened to be a Black male. I then had a Black male teacher in the 7th grade who then also became my college counselor. So that was another safe space for me, particularly as I was thinking about, okay, what's my next? What are the environments that are important to me? I also had a Black woman who was at the head of, she was our director of diversity, equity, and inclusion. That was the first role to ever be had at the school, and she was it. Her brother actually went to the same school, and so she was very familiar with the school demographically and socially, and so she was another safe space for me. So I think as a part of my healing journey, what I've recognized is, even in those moments of not feeling seen, God was really, really intentional about placing people in my along my path, so that way they could help me, and so that way I could feel seen and feel affirmed in those moments. And that literally, I can think of very specific individuals no matter where I was in life, but it started in the 7th grade for me.
Now, I want to kind of go back. You said that you had conversations with some other members of the other Black students within your school?
Mhm.
And did they feel any type of anxiety or pressure that you did? Did they feel that?
That's a good question. I think so. So I have a really, really good, really close friend who's a Black male. He actually went there from K through 12. Um, and so I think I had a conversation with him recently. I was like, I felt like school, like you made school look really easy. Like he was a top athlete, he made top grades, and I think it was interesting in the clip where she started to talk about the Black male experience and how they might feel some things, but it might translate differently. And for a very long time, I felt like he was treated differently, like more of a golden child, whether he acknowledges it or not. That's how I saw him. I think because I did not have the words or language to express it, and it was just out of pure frustration and anger all the time, it wasn't well received. And so now I can have healthy conversations with him and we can be reflective. But in the moment, I just didn't have the language. I didn't have the language for it. And I think that that's what I think that, again, when you're talking about the infrastructure and system and even the curriculum, like the schools, they like literally it's upon them to ensure that their students are succeeding, because that really only makes them look even better. And so as a part of that success, what what supports are you building into the fabric? And so I think they tried to provide those safe spaces, but then it's like, okay, how do you have guided and even like moderated conversations with young people that are trying to find their language and trying to find the best way and healthiest way to communicate their frustrations with one another.
Was there bullying? I mean, what would make you feel uncomfortable?
Yes, I would. Yes, I would say that there was some bullying. I think in 2025 we would call them more microaggressions. So there was like a spectrum, like microaggressions and then like outright bullying. I think the outright bullying would be asking me on the playground, why do I speak Ebonics all the time? Well, like, why is that even a part of your vocabulary as a seventh grader? I don't understand it. I didn't even know what Ebonics meant at the time, but that like memory really sticks out to me. But then there was also, being an athlete. Well, Vanessa, why aren't you washing your hair like after gym class? Like, why are you, I don't know. It was just like very people calling each other like cracker as like an equivalent to calling each other the N-word. They knew they couldn't say the N-word, so they were calling each other cracker. Like stuff like that. It's like very goofy. And it's like, again, that's not my job as a student to monitor that. So again, like elevating that to the administrators, because it's interesting because I just sat on a panel earlier in January, and apparently it's this whole epidemic of kids in these private schools that are they're giving each other a pass to say the N-word. Like it's almost like, okay, I as a Black person, I'm telling you that it's okay. And it's like, why is that even important to even be doing that? Like those things I don't understand. And so when asking them that in real time, they're just like, well, we're just saying it. Like we observed it. And I was like, and then what did you do with that information? Did you tell somebody, or are you trying to, you going to beat up somebody because they did that? Like, what's your plan? What's your approach? And so it's important for these schools and institutions to not put the onus on the students that is impacting the most. Like, you actually have to own the fact that we are participants in this school that you are leading, and it would behoove you to really ensure that it is the safest and healthiest place for every student and child to thrive. And so it's just like, it's interesting how some of the things go under the radar and other things don't. But it's what grieves me is the cycles that just continue to repeat. And I think when I spend time with young Black girls that are at either the same school that I went to or other schools that are similarly situated, they're still dealing with the same things. And so now I feel as though I have the authority to then talk to their parents about it, because it's like, you got, like, this takes a community. You can't just trust these schools with the rearing of your child. Like, you're entrusting them to help them and prepare them as academically as possible. But if you're choosing to send them to be the only one, you got to make sure that they're supported holistically. And so you got to be intentional about the system that you are curating as the parent.
I think that's so vital. So, and you mentioned that the system that your parents curated was, things outside activities, church, etc. Correct?
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of time with family. And then I think by the time I got in high school, my network was expanding even more because I started to work. And so I was meeting, new people. And I wasn't so heavily reliant on this social system that was the school.
Mm. Yeah, the social system seems to be, one of the major problems I think that we really got to develop and work on. And so when you went to college for your bachelor's, did you stay on campus?
I did. Yeah, it was required for everybody to stay on campus. So I think what helped me, one, in choosing Denison, my dad went there. And so I'm actually I am a legacy, but I also think that we're one of the first Black father-daughter legacies to have graduated from Denison. So really cool. And he was able to kind of, school me and verse me on the climate of the school. When I went on an overnight visit, I was like, oh, this is like a college version of the school I went to, but just with more Black people. So that alone was like exciting to me. I knew that I needed a small classroom setting when I went to college. So I only applied to small liberal arts schools. I did apply to an HBCU. And unfortunately, they did not give me any financial aid. And so that was a decision where it was like, yeah, we can't allow you to take all this money out in student loans and you're wanting to go to law school. Like, that just wouldn't be financially responsible. And so I heeded to that. And, Denison was an extension of my high school, middle school and high school, but just with again, more folks that look like us, more richer with lived experiences. And, I charted my own path and forged my own relationships.
One of the negatives that people often cite when they talk about going to HBCUs is the fact that they think that it won't prepare people, Black folks in particular, to work with in more predominantly white spaces. That I've heard that critique a number of times. Have you heard that? And what would be your thoughts? Do you think because of your upbringing that you're able to now be a more well-rounded person and traverse this landscape that we call America? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. I actually wrote a paper for a sociology anthropology class on the importance of HBCUs. And I think that it was important for me to, even though I didn't have that experience for myself, to just call out, we shouldn't downplay the historical as well as present context. These institutions are still and will continue to do so prayerfully, just amazing and dynamic individuals that arguably, because of their surroundings and because of their peers, they have a stronger sense of who they are, just by way of just honoring and seeing each other through lived experiences. So I really, it's a conversation around environments, but it's also a conversation of individual and like what is important for you. I think it would be very limiting for me to say that because I went to PWI institutions, I am more well versed than someone who went to a HBCU to navigate different work environments. And if they're predominantly white environments, those, I would disagree, because a number of folks that I know that matriculated through HBCUs, they came out hungry. They came out really well assured of who they were. And so when you're entering into various industries, that's just to help bolster you. And I see somebody, yeah, VP Harris, yeah, she did. And like, that was huge. And she's also in a class of many, many other people that have really relished and have thrived from those environments. So I really just think it depends on the individual. And I think that that's me kind of later in life, reconciling my lived experiences with, okay, perhaps my approach wasn't the healthiest because I did not have a strong sense of who I am. I need to stop and pause and just really take inventory of who I am, who I see myself as, and really being anchored and firm in that identity and taking those things with me, irrespective of the environment that I'm in. So yes, but I think it really just depends.
So talk about this. You didn't have this good sense of identity, because this is key. This is key for me. Why do you feel that as if you were lacking a good sense of self-identity?
So I think the first go-to would be not understanding who I am as a Black woman. I'm actually not even talking about that. What I'm referencing is more of a spiritual context, and I want to really zero in on this because it's something that's almost kind of overlooked. Like, we continue to go throughout life and wonder why, after obtaining certain degrees and, achieving whatever is this American dream, like, why do I still feel stuck? And it's, for me, again, because I am a woman of faith, it really was, I was chasing other people's dreams for me and not really understanding who I am and whose I am. And so when I've hit a few walls, but I think the most critical and pivotal one was in October of 2019. And this was after I had graduated from law school in 2018. This was after one bar failure. And, you've got this JD. It's the expectation that you're going to take the bar exam, you're going to go practice law, and you're going to be and do all of these things. Quiet as it's kept, when I started law school, I knew intuitively that practicing law is not something that I wanted to do, but I still kept doing it. I kept still chasing this path because I felt like that was what was expected of me. And like, why would you go to law school and not practice? Well, no, in actuality, there's a number of things that you can do with your law degree. And I also don't want to diminish the fact that law school really sharpened me in a way that I wouldn't have been had I not gone. And so I really want to honor that time and space. I went to law school part-time and I worked full-time. I was considered a non-traditional student because I had taken a couple of years between college and law school to just work and to just try to figure it out, like whether or not this was really something I wanted to do. And so after, October of 2019, I just felt this immense sense of depression. I felt really stuck. And I was like, if I keep going throughout this life without understanding, really who created me and like what he envisions for me, which in full transparency, I'm still figuring that out. But I needed to address some inner criticisms and self-doubt, insecurities that I had lived with for so long. And some of those things were rooted in attending PWIs for so long. And it's just like, what am I chasing in terms of validation? Why do I keep going down this path of people pleasing? You really have to kind of excavate and do the deeper work. So that way you're not just a shell, like moving throughout life. Like you really this is what I want for everybody. I want for everyone to feel and to be as present as they can be in any journey of their lives, because you can feel it so much more. You can feel it deeper. Your relationship with God, if that's your faith system, and your relationships with other people are truly contingent on you being a healthy human being and individual. And I just was not that. And I needed to find the language for it. I needed to start doing the soul work for me to just continue forward. And so that's what I chose to do. And so, lo and behold, I was able to get connected with my now current therapist, who actually was a therapist at my old school. So you talk about alignment, I think sometimes people are like, oh my gosh, I gotta, finding a therapist takes so much work. And you got to build the rapport. You got to teach them about you, because she was so versed in the social climate of the school that I went to. I felt seen immediately. And even now to this day, because I still see her, like, it is absolutely remarkable of the amount of work that we've been able to do together, and the amount of work that I do outside of our sessions, because your healthy development and your self-work should not just be relegated to your time in therapy. Like, you should be tending to yourself each and every day. And it's a lot of work, and you gotta want to do it. And I just got to a point where I did not want to see my spirit suffer, and I didn't want to see the remnants of like just unhealthy friendships and relationships continue on. And so that is just the personal accountability that I take for myself. And it has truly given me a stronger sense of who I am. I live by 3 words and 3 questions. The 3 words are identity, discernment, and self-awareness. And the 3 questions are, what do you want? Why do you want it? And what are you willing to do to get it? And so if I carry those points with me, regardless of who I'm working for, what title I have, I'm anchored, because I'm allowing the one who created me to set me on solid ground versus another human being or another system telling me who I am. I think that and I also think that lends itself, when you think about the concept of identity, you have these Black children being and educated in these white systems, and they're learning about themselves in a very whitewashed environment. And it's like, who's going to hold that accountable for them to know themselves holistically? I don't care where you go to college. I really don't. I don't care what you get your degree in, because if you're doing it for the sake of for your parents to say that they have oh, my child is doing this, you're doing things because you feel forced and pressured by your parents to do it. You got to get right with yourself and know what it is that you are here on this earth to do. Now, do I think that there's and again, I'm saying this, I do not have children. I do desire to be a mom. I do desire to be a wife one day. So let me just offer that. I am not a parent yet. I think that there's value when you have present parents and parents that are truly about the health and development of their children. I think there's value to take into consideration. As a mother, I see so much more in you than you may see in yourself. And I think that conversation can be very synonymous to the conversation we have and how God views us. So that's what I mean by identity. There are so many things in me that I haven't even discovered yet. But God is saying, I knew you before you were in your mother's womb. Your path is already charted. And I'm here to help guide you through this journey, but don't get into a space of doing things because you are trying to people please and you're trying to seek validation in things and other people that don't have value.
So I wanted to ask you a little bit about, navigating these spaces, and so many times, Black women's sense of identity, as you mentioned, is so tied to their presentation. And somebody asked you, how come you didn't wash your hair after gym class? We all get those questions. Why are you using lotion? What's up with that? So talk to us just a little bit about that experience. Just the whole hair experience. I appreciate what you said about the identity. I definitely think that that's an issue that the vast majority of Black women really suffer with, not knowing who we are, what we are, where we're coming from, where we're going. So speak to that a little bit. And our physical presentation, thicker lips, hair, etc. Talk about how you had to navigate that.
Well, I think I took on a personal challenge. I actually started locking my hair in law school, which was very interesting. So even in law school, again, I think we started out with maybe 5 to 7 Black students in a cohort of, I don't know, let's just say like 57 or something. It was small. By our 2L year, I was the only one in my class, in my evening program. And so for whatever reason, it was on my heart to start locking, one from a from a maintenance standpoint. Like I just did not, the grind is so real in law school, and especially if I was working full time, how can I lighten my load just a little bit? And it was, truthfully, locking my hair was always something that I had thought about doing, but it was just a matter of time. I had witnessed someone make a choice to cut off their locks because of something that a professor said. And that too stuck with me, because I like to go against the grain. And I was like, I'm going to start them. And so was there a level of, people look at you, they like, what are you doing? If you have locks, that there's like that quote unquote ugly phase. So like that first year is like, ugh, like you're budding, like they're thin, they're not really taking shape. But like something told me to just stick with it. And now, I think it's the greatest decision I've ever made about my hair, but it's also very a part of who I am. And so, yeah, deciding to do that in law school was a very interesting decision, but I stand 10 toes down on it. And I've even encouraged other people to start their locks. And so, yeah, I mean, people are going to question, but then the answer is, well, why do you feel uncomfortable with how I show up? And I think of a couple of other, particularly attorneys in the city that, yeah, they have locks too. And they're very much in very important spaces. And that is what they have chosen to do. And it's just like, yeah, when you are so self-assured, I don't have to be concerned about how somebody else perceives it. And no one will ever question my level of being professional or not, because I have the credentials to, to show for it. And not that I need to lean on those things, but it's just that's where I am in my life. And I love, like, just a little bit as I get older, like that need of other people co-signing decisions, very slim to none, because I'm the only one that lives in my household and I navigate this ship. So yes. And
Very good.
Yes, Justice Ketanji Brown, yes, 100%. When I saw her getting sworn in as our Supreme Court Justice, I said, yeah, absolutely. Go ahead and do that with your locks.
What would you say to people? I mean, I think the vast majority of us who are watching this or maybe watching in the future have lived in these types of spaces, gone to schools in these types of spaces, and are working or have worked in these types of spaces. What advice would you give people to navigate these spaces, to feel good about themselves, how they show up, all the negative stereotypes, angry, incompetent, all the, the whole DEI conversation? What advice would you give someone to how to show up in these types of spaces?
I think a couple of things. How I approach any space that I enter into now. I learn how to read the room. I adapt, and I anticipate others either appreciation or discomfort. And so that gives me an entrance of, okay, how am I going to interact with this person? And how will I choose not to interact with this person? So I'm always just hypersensitive and self-aware about any space I'm entering into. I think I've learned that the concept of code switching is both spiritually and emotionally exhausting. Mm-hmm. I try to be as consistent as I am, whether I'm talking with my parents, my brother, my colleagues, other like policymakers, decision makers. I don't have the energy to shapeshift for your comfort. And I really encourage people to really be so confident in themselves and knowing that you are in particular spaces for a reason, and that don't give someone else a reason to second guess why you're there. Like, if you are sure why you're there, then be there, and the rest will take care of itself. So I don't shapeshift for rooms. And often I will try to curate the spaces, and I build the table, and I invite people to come to the table. So I have grown to understand that I have a sense of authority, and that when I enter into a space, that there's a level of energy and there's a level of leadership that I bring just because of my existence, not because of a title, and not because I need some attention or validation. I am just that clear in my identity. And I just think that people are way more quick to give that level of agency and authority away, that really serves as a disservice to them. You need to lean in. Like, there is a reason why you are in these particular spaces. And so just own it. Make it your own. Make it your own. So even if it's something as small as something I've started doing is I will wear sneakers with a suit. Like, something as small as that, like that would have been really unheard of. Like, maybe even 5 years ago, right? But like, that is something I'm always trying to find little ways for me to show up as authentically as possible. And that's just really important to me. If you're doing work and your daily life is, it takes a lot of energy and it takes a lot of social equity, you want to be comfortable. Because when you're comfortable, you lead differently and you show up differently. You love people differently. And so that's my heart posture. That's what I strive to do each and every day.
Very good. Do you think that and only a couple more questions here. Do you think that the Crown Acts that were passed in various states, do you think that those have given Black women a higher level of comfort to be as expressive as you mentioned? Do you think that?
I think the short answer is yes. And how will we continue to own it? Like that, and that can be a rhetorical question. But I also think that there's been levels of ownership in how we show up with our hair, with with the clothes that we wear, way before the Crown Act even came into existence. I also want to, as much as I think that is a step forward, I don't want to limit the existence of Black women to just hair. And so I think, like, when we get these like little layups, like, we think that that's like a win, and it is. But I also think we just really need to be holistic and more thoughtful of, we're way more than our hair. We are problem solvers. We are pillars. We literally carry the world on our back. And so I just want to see just how much more we will own our presence beyond the Crown Act.
Very good. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much the questions that I had there, I think. Yeah, so and so I don't really have anything else, quite honestly. Did you have anything you wanted to ask or talk about? Anything else that we can?
No, I think that this is again an interesting conversation. I think that they will continue to happen, and I keep going back to that clip because I'm really hyper focused on, like, I want to have a conversation with her, and I want to know whether, has she how does she feel about her healing journey from that snapshot of her life. And I think I asked you, like, even in our kind of pre-conversation, like, how do you feel about your healing journey as it pertains to being in PWI spaces? And do you feel like it's ongoing? Do you feel like you've healed from them? Like, what's your perspective? Because I think that will, understanding someone's origin with the thing will shed light on how they are currently and like how they're choosing to navigate from or with those lived experiences.
Yeah, those are good questions. My origin, similar to yours, I went to a public school here in Connecticut, and it was very diverse, but I was eventually I got put into the higher level groups, the honor groups or whatever they were called, top groups, because they would separate us in middle school and high school. So the more advanced kids would be in these groups, and I was always in those classes, and there was few of us, 3 or 4 in a class of 25 or 30 or whatever it was. Funny, when I'm still mad about this today, 52 years old. So when they changed school districts, so they switched it up because to make everything more racially harmonious.
Mm-hmm.
So, my brother and I, he went to one high school, and then I go to high school. My brother's older than I. When I go to high school, I had to go to a different high school. Like, I don't even know. I don't know. I walked into the high school. I literally knew 2 people in the whole school.
Mm-hmm.
So again, honors classes. Yeah. So I walk into the school, right? So, I'm trying to make friends and this, that, and the other. And these people don't know me. And so one of the first days I'm there, right, we're having this conversation. So I get into class, you had to switch classes. So I get into this one class. So I'm setting up, putting my books down and whatever. And this one kid, he's like, oh, such and such. And he calls me the N-word. Now, and the teacher walks in right after that. It was about to go down. So I said to other black students, and it was, again, 3 or 4 of us in class. I'm like, you guys allow them to talk to you like that?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh, don't worry about him.
Yeah.
He needs to worry about me.
Yeah.
So
that's real.
Those types of, so those types of incidents, but after that, after that was a little more calm. We had some words, and I don't know how you talk to these other black folks, but I come from the other side of town. So that was that. And then when I got to the PD, there was a couple of different stories that I have, and there was a female. She was white, and something happened, and she comes to me and says she's talking to me about another female, and she says, don't trust that one. I said, why would you say that? And she called me an N-word lover. I'm like, what? And she's like, yeah. And so she told me never to trust her. So, and I didn't. I listened to her. And so, remember, these are all cops now, right? So, of course, we understand the history about all that.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 1998, the movie Rush Hour comes out.
Mm-hmm.
The movie Rush Hour with Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker.
Mm-hmm.
And so so I worked the midnight shift, and the morning shift comes in. Now at this time I was working at the booking desk, and that means anybody who comes in, we had to process them, do their fingerprints, take their pictures, et cetera, et cetera. So that was my assignment for the night. And there's usually 3 of us working. So we 3 of us working plus a supervisor. So I was not a supervisor yet, but I was on my way out, waiting for these people to show up. And so the morning crew comes in, the supervisor comes in, and he was an Italian guy. And the woman who I just told you about, she comes in. She's working the first shift. The one who called the other one an N-word lover. So she comes in and she says, hey, Sarge, to the new morning shift guy, how was your weekend? And he says, oh, it was good. I went to see that movie Rush Hour. She's like, what? Why would you go see a movie like that? And he said, for training. So what he was saying was, he didn't understand how right. And I'm sitting in the room. I'm sitting in the room. And he's like, he's he's saying that he didn't understand how these people worked or lived and what their comedy was and all that kind of stuff. So I understood exactly what was going on around me. Sometimes I missed stuff, but I understood exactly what was happening around me.
Yeah.
So when I left the PD, so I wrote a book. Everybody thought I was going to write a book about the PD. All the cops were like, "Oh, we got to read your book." It's not about the PD. Relax, but it was about my time in law. It was about my time in law enforcement. Yeah, people I hadn't heard from in years were calling me up like, "Oh, we got to hear you. We got to read your book." I'm like, "Dude,"
they were nervous.
They were nervous. They absolutely were nervous. They were nervous.
Yeah.
former chiefs and all these different people calling me, is this guy gonna tell on us and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote a book about police reform and what needs to change. I did tell some stories, but nothing that made anybody look bad or anything like that. Not our department, because I'm friends with those guys. So then So one of one of my buddies, right? He retired very recently. He calls me up. In the book, I tell a story about my training officer who was another white female, different one. And so we go through the police academy, and then from the police academy, you had to do, at that time, I think it was like 10 weeks of field training. That means you have to ride around with someone, and they tell you about how to fill out paperwork and the what really happens versus what the theory that you get in the police academy. So first time we were on a report, I got to write a report, and she says, right as my pen is about to touch the paper, right back in the olden times, right before computers and stuff. So yeah, I had to dip my pen dip my quilt in the ink, before I had to do that, right? So she says to me, be careful how you write. And then she says, let me see how I want to say this. Exactly her words. Let me see how I want to say this. Because you're Black and people out here don't think you're able to do it. Do this job. So first I was like highly offended. Then I'm like, I'm glad you told me. I'm glad you told me. At least she told me about what people think. And of course, she was a woman, and they had the same. This is 1995 now. So she had the same experiences. So she was actually trying to warn me. Listen, you got to be good, because she had to be good as a woman, because they don't think women can do it either, right? And she's a white female. They don't think that they they won't say that now, but a lot of them don't think that they can do it. Obviously writing reports isn't a big deal, but they obviously challenge our intelligence. So I told that story in the book, and he calls me up. A friend of mine called me up. We're both in retirement. He's like, and he calls me Larry. They all call me Larry, right? Larry, this didn't happen. I'm like, Mike, did you think I lie about that?
Right. How are you to tell me about my own lived experience? But okay.
But no, but he's a good dude. We still talk to this day. He's a good dude. And he just couldn't believe that the people that he worked with thought like that. So I'm like, listen, it's great that you think that this isn't going on, because that means that they weren't comfortable enough to say it around you. But I'm telling you that this was what I was in.
Yeah.
And he's like, man, I'm so sorry. I'm like, listen, don't apologize or anything like that. Don't apologize. We're still cool. We still go out to lunch to this day. But that's just what it is. So have I recovered from that? Yeah. I mean, I'm good. Miles has put into the chat here about trying to establish your own. So I'm retired now. I don't have any scars. I don't hate anybody. I didn't have to go through the hair stuff or anything else like that. And there was a lot of work that was done by people that got there before me. A lot of lawsuits, things like that. So we got opportunities. We had chances. We had established a Black law enforcement type of situation or group, I should say, that really kind of helped us to navigate this type of stuff. And we were on the lookout for it. Are we getting passed up for promotions? Are we getting passed up for opportunities? Is there anybody, not backing us up on calls? We were looking for all that, right? And we wanted to share these different stories. And for a long time, I was the only officer on third shift. For like 4 years, I was the only Black officer on third shift. And there was 20 of us. And they were all, and it was rough, but I'm telling you, they were good, right? If I called out a motor vehicle stop, they would show up. They would show up, So they did what they had to do. So my overall experience, I would say, was good. And people were, and I wrote this in the book. My overall experience was good. What they thought is what they thought, but at least they didn't show up. And I could care less about how what you think about me. What matters is how you treat me. What matters is how you treat me. So
that's right.
So yeah.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I mean, I think it's important to call the things out, but then how have you grown from those experiences? And I just think that I am able to speak to both perspectives. I lived it. This is how I've grown. I also want to offer, and I don't think I really touched on it in the beginning, but like the relationships as a Black woman with Black women or Black men in navigating these spaces have been hugely, hugely important. I think about like having my father being the first man to like really love me and affirm me as a person and as a Black girl. I think about my brother, who is 13 years younger than me, but he still very much sees me. I think about a few relationships with Black men from that private school, right, that are still in my life to this day. And even other Black men that I've built relationships with throughout life. I say that because I think those earlier experiences can cloud, again, how Black women interact with Black men. What I'm here to tell you is that those healthy relationships can exist. I actually want every Black woman to know what it feels like to have healthy platonic relationships with Black men, and not just always seeing somebody as like, oh, that's my husband, that's my husband. No, he could actually very much just be a board member of your board of directors. I think everybody should have a personal board of directors and an inner circle that they can lean on, right? And so that has helped me in viewing men, and particularly Black men, in a really healthy way. And so if you are a Black woman that navigated those PWI spaces and you really didn't have those, know that I see you, and like I just encourage you to find and identify those relationships however way you can, and just get your community. Like your lived experiences will build and help to develop your own sense of community. And not only do I have this like list of inner circle, but like I revisit that often. People don't understand or give the level of importance to relationships as they should. People impact how you see yourself, how you show up in the world, how you can grow. Iron truly does sharpen iron, and you got to determine who's there sharpening you or who's not. And so I'm always going through that process, and I'm grateful that I have a strong community of both strong Black men as well as strong Black women. And so just lean on those things and be reflective of that, because it's important. It's important.
Miles is asking, really, what was he supposed to learn? Stereotypes? What would Rush Hour teach him? Some new stereotypes. Let me tell you. So I teach a class. It's called Race, Ethnicity, and Crime, and I constantly talk about. I really want to teach a journalism class because not that I'm a journalist, but I understand the value of public perception, what TV, radio, news, and all that has done, and we were always painted this particular way. So what he was saying was, this former sergeant, he's gone now. I don't want to be too disrespectful to him. He retired not long. He passed not long after he retired. But what he was saying is that he looks at, because he didn't interact with us, he was looking at how Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan, right, a Black dude and an Asian guy, how they responded. So when he looks at Chris Tucker being over the top and hey man and all this kind of stuff, right, Chris Tucker's comedy, he took that as this is how they interact, and it seems crazy, it seems nonsensical, but this is what they think. And this is true of any journalism class or any communications class will tell you this. We are responsible, and our public image that the world sees, the first introduction to that is TV, radio, media, and now social media. And when we are on there twerking, being, putting out all this different types of crass music, all this different type of stuff, all these, stuff we do with our hair and baby mamas and all the stuff that we have going on that we're trying so hard to fight against. Yeah. They really think that we all think like this.
Right.
And we have to fight against that.
But shame on them for casting that. People will learn and get to know people how they want to. Like, those are choices. So if you are choosing to see something that's illuminated through the media, and just typecast out all Black people, shame on you. Truly.
Okay, I get that. No, seriously, but this is it's easy to say this is, we get to know somebody. But think about this. This was a guy, and I talk about this when I teach this class, and I used to teach a class at the police department. Gosh, what was the name of the class I used to teach? I taught human behavior, and I taught civil rights, police, the history of policing up until the civil rights movement. So think about this guy who was. Now, this story I told was from 1998. I became a police officer in 1995. I try to put this in context, and this is exactly what I teach when the way I say it.
Mm-hmm.
These guys who were police officers didn't retire. They were police officers for 30 years, right? 30 years, some of them 40 years. You subtract 1998, what's 30 years ago? It's 1968, right?
Mm-hmm.
1968, these guys became police officers. What was going on in 1968? You had riots all over the place, civil rights movement, all that type of stuff. Think about the messages that are going on. Think about the media that's going on, the radio, the TV, the magazines, right? They didn't grow up around us. It was intentionally segregated. And not only did they become police officers probably at the age of 18 or 19 or 20, whenever they did.
Yeah.
And at that time, you had to know somebody to become a police officer. So it had to be a cousin or somebody like that. It was a good old boys club. And what that good old boys club means, they're going to hire people who think along the same lines.
Oh, for sure.
They're
And they're by and large,
right.
They're by and large coming from probably more smaller rural areas that everyone looks the same.
So they come from that environment. They become police officers in an inner city, not used to dealing with these types of people. They've got this pre-programming from the media, and you want them to hang around different people, right? And now they're used to just corralling us because of the message that they've always heard. Corral these people, keep them here. They're less than. They're not as smart. They're not. Their cities are a mess. That all this different type of stuff. So we want people like that. And this guy was older. Now, this guy who I told you the story about was a sergeant for like 20 years. He was a sergeant for 20 years, maybe longer than that, but I'm going to just say 20 years. He's in this authoritative position. He shows up in all these different negative calls. And now he wants to come in. He's going to see a young guy like me. I'm a young buck, right? What do I know about the world? He's going to come in and he's going to hang out with me, have a conversation. He don't think anything like that. He's got this old frame of thinking. So it takes some of it, you have to allow the younger generation to try to make the moves. So it's a vastly more complex thing than just saying, well, let's just have a picnic and let's all get to know each other and we'll all have a potluck. I'm not saying that you're saying that or anybody else is saying that. I just try to understand the complexity of how we get to cross these divides. And a lot of these people are just too far gone. They're just too far gone. They're just they got their training, whatever they've done in their lives. It's just too far gone. So yeah. Let's see. Not much has changed. Let me see. No one is giving disrespect to me in my face. No one is giving disrespect to me to my face and passively aggressing attack to me. Dr. Dell's podcast. I didn't suffer low self-esteem. I think that we're coming to a great place in our life where we are understanding that. Yeah. So, but why use comedy as a learning tool? He could have availed himself to a plethora of literature, documentaries, etc. You can get a degree in African American studies at most university. He was a racist. I mean, he was a racist. I'm not saying he wasn't. I understood exactly what it was. I understood, and the tamping down, a lot of the tamping down that was done by work before me, as I mentioned, a lot of lawsuits and things like that, saying you can't talk like this. You can't be like this. More women are joining the department. More Black people are going to be joining the department, or minorities. Matter of fact, right before I took the sergeant's test, and this is 98, 99 or so when I took the sergeant's test, we had to sit through a class. And as I'm listening to the class, I'm like, this class is about getting these people ready for us. because they had never seen a bunch of supervisors who are going to be Black, never seen so many women into the department, so they had to tell them
Yeah.
to get ready. And of course, you can't discriminate, so we had to be in a class too. And so
Yeah.
when we took the sergeant's test for the first time in the history of the department, 4 of us scored in the top 20, and 3 of us had scored in the top 10. And this is another story I put in the book. I think I did. It's been a while since I read it. So 3 of us in the top 10, and they thought they thought that we got extra help, that we were studying together. Like, did we get extra points for being black? It was crazy. Like, no, how about you just give us a chance and we're actually smart. We can actually do the job. We can actually read the material and take the test, but that was the world that they were in. And Miles is saying not much has changed. Listen, we're still kind of dealing with that. It's not over in a lot of places. It's not over.
I think it's this common understanding that people just don't want to compete because they feel they're approaching everything with fear. You can say hatred, but hatred boils down to just fear. Like that you are so unaccustomed to what can be. We know just from sheer numbers that whites are going to be the minority if they aren't already. So just by numbers alone, people are fearful of that. So how do we systematically change that? We can't continue to create programs that are just pacifying a broken system and infrastructure. And that's the crux of these conversations. Like we can't keep continuing to piecemeal someone's actual humanity and existence. Like we are here. I literally remember, and I don't know how we got, well, your story got us here, but I'm just thinking about an interview I saw Roland Martin do years ago with this white nationalist. And I want to say it was around 2015 or 2016. And there was this whole rally of folks that were like doing the Nazi salute in 2016. And there was like we saw this like resurgence of like this ultra alt-right narrative that was really taking place in the country. And so Roland sits down with him. This was when he was still had his show on TV One. And he was like, what are you so afraid of? Like, he was like, well, I really want to preserve like whiteness. I want to preserve like my people. And he's like, but we built this. We, as in Black people, we're not going anywhere. And so like you kind of talked about a little bit, and I don't know if I'm touching on a little bit of like you kind of speaking to wanting to leave and like, or like planning to leave. And I don't necessarily want to take away from that, but like that makes me want to show up even more. Because there are folks, and I have felt that. Like I have felt like, Vanessa, you got here because of affirmative action. You are how did you get into this space? And it's just like, the fact of the matter is I'm here. And so, and I'm here to take care of business. And so I keep going back to that interview because he had no response. People don't want to acknowledge the just the harm that is in the fabric of this country, but it's also built off of a system of just hatred, fear, unhealthy people. And so how do we get people to reconcile themselves as individuals that can then begin to pour into a healthier system or systems and infrastructure? People don't want to deal with themselves, Dr. L, and that's a part of the problem. We can try to address the system, but behind the system is our unhealthy people. And we gotta get people to a place of just like, yeah, like I should not be serving in this capacity.
I've done a lot of research, and I know exactly that interview that you're speaking of, and on Roland Martin, I watched it as well. And so I've done a lot of work as 2006 or so, FBI released a report saying that, you know, white nationalists had infiltrated the military and the police departments, and were in. And so I've done a lot of work and reading about that, trying to understand that. It's you know, what's going on today, and this fear, and you know, the ICE raids, and all that is really a symptom of exactly what you talked about. Just a fearful moment in time, and trying to control the narrative, trying to control what's going on. And not that I so much believe that the president believes that, but other people believe that and believe a lot of different things. And so, you know, my point is that, you know, this comes from a deep place of racial animus. And there's a lot of it that's going on. I'm going to try to address this. I'm going to do on my other channel. This week I'm going to talk about the Second Amendment, where that really comes from, and why we have such a gun culture in this country. And it really comes down to fear of Black people taking up and rising up, right?
Yep.
You know, so it's and that's why when I looked at the sergeant who was a racist, I understand that this is a complex evolution of, you know, years and years of propaganda against Black folks, that we're inherently inferior, and when, you know, that we can't do anything. And you take that type of understanding, and you take it through every single permeation, every single situation of life. It has permeated that, from doctors to lawyers to again, criminal justice, whole system, judges, everyone has been involved in this white supremacist movement.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, to have one conversation with one sergeant, and it's a whole system we're fighting with, and it's just not worth having for me. For me, it's not worth having that. It's not worth having that conversation at that time. I think that we have to attack the system of the problem, and I think that we're doing a great job with that. But having a conversation with a person at a time is not worth it, in my estimation.
I hear you, but at the same time, also facing the reality that we are just one, like, I am one person, you are one person. I see that as an opportunity to plant the seeds where you can, right? Because and again, if you have the capacity to do so, why not? And I think it's because it's one thing for us to be having the conversation, because by and large, we are in alignment with how we're thinking about this. I want to reach the people that don't see the world the same way that I do. Because why? They then need to have the conversations at the Thanksgiving dinner tables and at Christmas, at any other holidays they may celebrate, where there's a concentration of their own sphere of influence. I don't think people fully understand just how powerful their spheres of influence are. And if people in the majority particularly were having these more strategic conversations of, we're not going to stand for this. Like, I want the more, regardless if you see or consider yourself to be progressive or not, if you are for human beings, and if you are for equity, you would be having these targeted conversations with your peers, with your neighbors, with your family members. Those conversations can also be game changers. And I never want to discount the power of planting seeds, but it's going to take more of those conversations happening versus the conversations between you and I. I do believe that.
Yeah, I mean, I understand it. I just choose to go about it a different way. I don't want to have conversations with people who don't want to have conversations with me. And I do believe that the old ways eventually will grow out of it. The more the people mingle, the more the people get to know each other, the more that we have positive, and some things need. Christopher Perkins says you got to change. It says it's systematic. I absolutely agree with that. That's what has to change. You want to change people. To me, my philosophy is, you want to change the perceptions. Then what you have to do is you have to get teachers and Black teachers in the classroom. Black teachers in colleges, Black police officers, Black people running for governing offices, change the journalism, change the journalists who will then change the journalism. Those are the steps. And I'm not saying having a conversation with a person who may change it or may not. Maybe I can get them to wake up and see something different. I think what really matters to me is that I show up in a good place, in a good space, and behave myself and comport myself as any other human being. Not so I think that I can't do certain things. We all want to be human beings and be equitable and be free to be ourselves, but just show up. But that's the way that I choose to approach it. So it really takes dismantling the systems and create new structure. Yeah, that's what I'm about. I appreciate everybody who wants to enter these spaces, who wants to become teachers, lawyers. That's where we got to get people: teachers, lawyers, doctors. You go to when Black people go to, when white people go to an emergency room, and the only one's going to help them is a Black doctor, and this Black doctor is competent. What else can you say about that? When I first showed up, there was a couple of times. This is 1995. 1995 wasn't really that long ago. It's not the 1960s. There was a couple of times I showed up on the call and people didn't want to talk to me. People didn't want to talk to me, right? I'm the officer on call, right? That means the call was mine, right? So all these 3 cops that showed up, I'm the one you got to talk to because I'm going to write the report. So it's me, It's me or nobody. And the other officers had to tell them, listen, you got to talk to him. So that's what you need. That's the kind of system you want to talk about, systematic. That's what you need. So a lot of these conversations that need to happen. You mentioned that when they're at the dinner table, that's what needs to change. You need, if the father is a racist and the daughter is a 12-year-old and she says, my best friend this or my friend this, and he's like, oh yeah, your friend Jenny. Okay, well, won't you have Jenny over? And then Jenny comes over. She's Black. Now, all this time she was talking highly about Jenny. Now you see Jenny and she's Black. You got that. Those are types of things. Yes, she's going to suffer microaggressions. Yes, it may be uncomfortable, but hopefully that type of environment, that type of situation will start to erode what's going on.
Absolutely. I think that there are multiple components that can happen simultaneously. What I'm saying is we're not always focused on the individuals behind these systems that need to change. And so how do we begin to influence the hearts of the individuals that are in proximity of power, that are governing these systems? That's all I'm saying.
I got you. So there are hardly any Black young professional doctors now. I think that there's certainly some things happening. What I've been watching, again, I'm no expert in this, but with the rolling back of student loans and limiting about student loans, that may affect how many Black doctors and lawyers, which there are not that many Black doctors and lawyers. How many Black people are going to run for a congressional office if they don't have the law degree, or how many people can become judges, right? So those are things we as a community have to figure out how we're going to support people to become doctors, to become lawyers, because being a lawyer is one of the best paths in order to get into Congress. So that's something we really got to understand is going to hit us hard. Not saying it's the only path, but it is a path. A lot of these people who are politicians have law degrees. So comparatively, yes, there are low numbers of doctors. There are low numbers of doctors, Black doctors.
I will offer there. I mean, there's a number of folks that don't have those credentials. I think it's helpful to understand from a policy component how to wordsmith and construct policies in conducive ways. Having a JD is not a prerequisite to run for office. And I'll also offer.
No, I agree with that.
Okay, and there are also plenty of opportunities. If you really want to get engaged, look at opportunities at the local level, look at opportunities at the county level as well as state level, because people really want to see how you're serving as a leader in your communities. And so when you're talking about tax dollars, when you're talking about who's sitting on city council and school boards and making these critical decisions around curriculum, those are the offices you really want to be paying attention to, in addition to what's happening federally. So I just want to offer that as well.
No, I certainly appreciate that, and I don't believe, just to be clear, that I never believed or said that they had to have a JD. It's not. It's definitely not a prerequisite. But I do agree, and what I appreciate you said is that this helps with policy making. You got to understand the language and all that, because a lot of these people are playing the long game, right? When they create Project 2025 and all this other stuff, and how they word things in there. So I want us to be able to understand what's happening and be in these rooms and understand what's being said when it's not being said. And so I think that the polishing of having a JD or even an public administration degree or any type of, whatever degree will help you to understand what's coming and be able to give you the ammunition or at least the know-how to fight back against this kind of stuff, because we're going to need to fight back. And then we got to have lawyers to fight this stuff. We can't always depend on other lawyers from other ethnicities to fight our fights. We got to fight these fights. If we, as you said, we want to stay here, fight, push back, we got to have the know-how and the skill. And my point about saying that is, if they're cutting back on this, on the funding for people to, capping people's higher education degrees or student loans at $100,000, then that's not going to get you through law school, or $200,000 for med school or whatever it is. It's gonna put some dampers on people who are going to think twice about going to med school and becoming and going to law school. It's going to put a damper on that. I looked into going to law school. It's $160,000. I don't have $160,000. So yeah. We must learn to become bilingual, multicultural in these environments, accept that they may not change, but we're required to shift, not change, but move fluidly in order to gain reputable positioning. Attending your city hall town meeting is imperative, especially if you live in areas where there aren't many of us. Well, now that the Job Corps are closing all over the country, there will be nowhere our people can have a stepping stone to higher education. We need those trade schools to stay open. We certainly do. And we got to do better in high school. That's another conversation for another day. I want to wrap up. What's up, Mr. Independent? Do you have any social media or anything like that people can reach you, or what's up with that?
So I actually don't do social media outside of LinkedIn, but you can find me on there, Vanessa Butler JD.
I did mean to stream this to LinkedIn too. I forgot to link it up though. So I think it's a good conversation people could have benefited from. I try to put professional conversations on LinkedIn as well. So yeah, no, I do. I try to put those on LinkedIn as well. Yeah. So thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I had you on here for almost 2 hours. So thank you so much. I appreciate everyone who chimed in, who in the chat. Hit the like button on your way out. 2 in 1 day. Yeah, I'm tired. I'm tired, y'all. Have me some lunch.
Get some rest. But no, seriously, thank you for your continued intentionality for curating these spaces for necessary dialogue. I appreciate it. I can ultimately say that no one has really been intentional of creating the space for this particular conversation. I've been a part of a few, but just thank you for the opportunity to come and share my lived experience.
I appreciate that. I want to say thank you to the mods again in the previous video. You guys were very, very much monitoring someone who was in there being kind of combative, and I appreciate that. I couldn't get to it, but I did see that you guys handled that. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I will see you guys. We'll try to do a members only video this week. Take care of yourselves. Much love and peace.